the opportunity. I have listened carefully as my colleagues on the other side have spoken to this matter. I am on all fours with anyone who calls for some prompt action to stem this tide of misconduct and lawlessness, which has come to characterize our post-electoral periods. But, Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely imperative that this discussion is had in a frank manner. One would be tempted to think, if he were not living in this country, that this is a recent phenomenon. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that since at least the year 2000, all those who can remember would recall that every change of government has been followed by this sort of activity. Mr. Speaker, things came to a head. Mr. Speaker, things came to a head when, after the 2016 elections, all manner of groups who had adopted blood-curdling names, such as Invisible Forces, Delta Forces, and what have you, were unleashed on the people of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, I regret to recall that on the very first day of assumption of office by President Akufo-Addo, in fact, the first day that he reported for work at the Flagstaff House, a senior police officer, at the time ASP Nanka Bruce, who had been the head of security at the presidency under the previous administration, was set upon by a member of these so-called Delta Forces. Mr. Speaker, thanks for the guidance, but it was necessary to record these events, to place the discussion in proper context, because I listened to my friend and brother, the Honorable Oponkroma, and others, who spoke in a manner that suggested that this is a recent phenomenon. Mr. Speaker, I have a few, Mr. Speaker, I have a few proposals of my own. What I believe is the cause of these problems is that whereas we have done relatively well in the management of our elections, at the very least, we've had 4 peaceful transfers of power. So we have got that right. What we have failed to do is to get the immediate post-elections period processes right. It does appear that right after elections, right after the winner is declared, our security agencies go to sleep. They effectively collapse and therefore are unable to deal with these miscreants, some of whom act this way in retribution against others who they perceive to have wronged them in the past. Mr. Speaker, it does appear that our Presidential Transition Act requires further amendments to strengthen the hands of state agencies to deal more effectively with the immediate post-elections period. Mr. Speaker, I have wondered why it is not possible for the winner of the elections to take over power immediately. We do know that in the United Kingdom, for instance, a day after a new prime minister is elected, he takes over Downing Street. So there is literally no gap that will be filled by miscreants and persons who are minded to engage in lawlessness. I think that we can go on that tangent and ensure that the transition is quicker, is swifter, and more seamless than it is at this particular time. We run a patronage system. All of us would appreciate that. So sometimes the security agencies are frozen into inaction because they are unsure, they are uncertain about what fate awaits them if they were to move against persons who are perceived to belong to the party that has won the elections. And that is why sometimes these sort of things happen. But we cannot resolve this problem without taking a holistic view, without appreciating that it runs deeper than merely citing recent instances to buttress one's argument. So I associate with the position taken by the majority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. It is minority leader, your party, minority leader. But let us broaden the discussion. Let us realize that the problem runs much deeper than we are appreciating at the moment. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this contribution.